Good morning or afternoon or good evening, and welcome to OpenDev Containers in Production.
Hello, everybody.
Looks like we have folks signing in from all over right now. We have Beth on the East Coast of the US, and some people joining in from the evening. So welcome. This is our third OpenDev of the virtual series that we've been doing for the past few months. And Ashley, I can't believe this is our last one.
I know, Allison. It seems like it's been forever since our first one. These have been going really well. I think they've been awesome events, and I can't wait to see what the follow-up is like.
I agree. Yeah, we've had some really great discussions earlier this past few months, and we'll be sharing the recaps with those later. But for now, let's go ahead and dive into containers in production. My name's Allison Price, and this is Ashley Ferguson. We're from the OpenStack Foundation, and we'll be your MCs for today and tomorrow. Like I said, this is our third virtual OpenDev of the series, and the focus for today and tomorrow's discussions will be containers in production. And just want to emphasize, it is a 2-day discussion. I know that there was some confusion, but we have shortened it to 2 days. So just join us back here at the same time for tomorrow, and we'll kick off new discussions then. And our next virtual event is actually going to be in October. This will be October 19th through the 23rd. This will be virtual as well. It will be free, so registration is now open. You can see the link here, and feel free to go and register and plan to participate. And the CFP closed last week, but if you have speaking proposals that you didn't make before the deadline, please email us. We have a few open slots left, and we can work with you on some options. All right, and I'll pass it on to Ashley to tell you how to participate today.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, so if you have been to any of our other virtual OpenDev events, you're probably pretty familiar with it by now, but just in case you're new here, welcome. Obviously, the first tool we're using is Zoom. So congrats, you made it here successfully. If you have any technical issues, let us know during the event. I'll let you know how to do that in just a second. And then the other tool that we're going to be using is called an Etherpad, and that's an open source collaborative tool, similar to a Google Doc, but open source. And so we'll have one Etherpad per session so that we can take notes in there and use that throughout the event. So back to Zoom, the first thing we'll be using in Zoom primarily is the Zoom chat. So if you have any technical questions, relevant to the topic discussions, feel free to drop those in there. We'll have the moderator and as well as other people from OSF watching to make sure we can answer as many of those questions as we can. But we also want to hear your voice and hear you jump in. So feel free to unmute yourself and actually jump into the conversation. That's what OpenDev is all about. We want it to be discussion-based primarily. So feel free to jump in when the time is right. And if you're not speaking, please try to keep yourself on mute just to cut down on any background noise. And then back to Etherpads. Like I said, this is a place for notes, feedback, action items. There are some questions and little polls in there that you can participate in. And there's also a designated area in each of these Etherpads to put your name and contact information so that people can connect with you after the event if you'd like. And then if you're interested in speaking during the discussions, put an asterisk by your name. That way our moderators know that it's okay to call on you and that you're comfortable speaking. And if you need any help at any time during the event, feel free to open or email events@openstack.org, and we'll have some folks waiting on the other end to help you with any technical questions or logistical questions. But like I said, if you have a technical question that's relevant to the topic discussion, drop it in the Zoom chat. We'll have people watching that. And then we also sent out a tips and tricks Etherpad in the pre-event email, so feel free to look for that. We'll drop that Etherpad in right now, and that should answer any other questions that you might have. And then I'll hand it back to Allison to introduce and thank our programming committee.
Thanks, Ashley. Yes, I want to thank the programming committee for this event. A lot of work goes into the weeks leading up to today to identify topics and moderators and get some discussion planning started. So a huge thanks to all of these community members who have spent the time to plan this week's event. I also want to thank our OpenDev sponsors. They make not only this event possible, but they make it free to join, and so everyone on can participate in today and tomorrow's discussions. All right, so I'm going to do a short little kickoff. And like I said, this is our third OpenDev of the virtual series and our fifth OpenDev overall. So earlier this year, we did one around large scale usage of open infrastructure and one on hardware automation. And we're going to throw those links into the chat now for the recaps, just so you can see what kind of discussions were had. And there are a lot of takeaways and outcomes that are resulting in ongoing work. So if you're interested in those discussions or they're relevant to the environments you're working with, please join those initiatives. They are still ongoing. I know the large scale SIG is actually meeting this Wednesday. So definitely check that out if those topics are of interest to you. But this week, we're going to be talking about containers and production. And when it came to choosing the topic, I think that containers was definitely top of mind because when we look at the growing market, 451, and Ashley, next slide. 451 anticipates that just the container applications market alone is going to be $4.3 billion by 2022. This is an incredible growth rate that they're seeing over the years. And when you partner that with OpenStack market, this is a $12 billion market by 2023. $12 billion. So there's definitely a lot of growth in both of these markets. And with that growth comes choice. Choice for different software technologies, choice for implementation strategies. So when looking at all of these different choices, it introduces integration challenges. And so when we talk to our users, we hear all of the different open source components that they're combining into their environments. And this is just a sampling of some of those technologies. And when you add more and more software, then you get more and more challenges sometimes. So here is actually a sampling of data from our very own OpenStack user survey, just to show that it's not just one size fits all. Every OpenStack user chooses something else to manage their applications based on what makes sense for their own environment. But so this is why we are here this week. You know, as you saw on the last slide, Kubernetes was, the leading choice for OpenStack users. So just last week on Twitter, we asked, who's running OpenStack in Kubernetes together? And we got a whole lot of answers for different companies that are running them together. And they're not all running it the same way. So even once you choose your technology choices, integration is still something that requires more additional information and choices for your team. So we see like Stack HPC and Tim Bell from CERN, they work with OpenStack Magnum, which is a component of the OpenStack software. And we have others that are working with Charms. And I think that Ann Harding actually asked a really interesting question because OpenStack and Kubernetes can be orchestrated in a lot of different ways. And that's why there's actually a topic for discussion today that is just about OpenStack integration with Kubernetes, because it's definitely a question we hear a lot from our users, and it's something that people have on top of mind as they choose to move forward with both of those technologies in production. Like I said earlier, coming out of the OpenDev events, one of our goals is to help the discussions this week and those previous weeks go into ongoing work. And I wanted to showcase some of the examples of that ongoing work that our community has been doing. So 2 years ago, the containers community with both Kubernetes and with OpenStack created a really comprehensive white paper to talk about those different integrations that users are doing in production. There's use cases from CERN and AT&T and quite a few others in this white paper, as well as architecture diagrams and just a lot of answers to the questions that we hear on a daily basis. So if you're interested in looking at that white paper, it's at openstack.org/containers. And if you're interested in getting involved in some of the work coming out of this week, stay tuned as each discussion may have different calls to action. Another good example of work coming out of the communities is the Baidu white paper that the Kata containers community published last year. So they detailed how they were integrating Kata, OpenStack, and Kubernetes, which is a really new use case since Kata was only launched 3 years ago. So here's another great resource and just a really good example of the kind of work that we're excited to see come out of the discussions this week to solve the problems that operators are having when deploying containers in production. So speaking of Kata, we actually have a demo for this morning. So this is around monitoring container usage. It combines a lot of the technologies I was just talking about. So to kick the event off, I actually want to pass it to Ben Liu and Shu Wang from Ant Global.
Hi, hello everyone.
you go.
I'm Xu. I'm Xu from the Kata Containers project, and let me have a short introduction. And I am a member of the Kata Containers App Committee, and we use the lightweight virtualization for the isolation of containers, and we are one of the open infrastructure projects of the OpenStack Foundation. And Kata Containers was announced in late 2017 and announced 1.0 in 2018. Right now, my team work for our financial service group, and we already have thousands of production nodes that have Kata Containers running. Right now, we are working for the 2.0 and 2.0 of Kata Containers, and which will be released in October this year. And one of the main goals of the 2.0 will be the observability. And being from my team that's working on the observability and the metrics collection, and he will introduce this part today. Yeah, thank you.
Ben, I think you might still be muted.
Hello?
There you go.
Hello? Hello everyone. Good night or good morning. I'm Liu Bin from Kata Containers team, and I'm glad to show you a simple demo about metrics in Kata Containers 2.0. Before starting the demo, let me give a basic description about the metrics in Kata Containers 2. Here is the basic data flow. Before Kata Containers 2, Kata only provide a CRI metrics interface. The metrics are container-centric and basic memory, CPU, network interface, or disk devices, and only for containers. As Xu has said, observability is one of the most important features in Kata Containers 2, and the metrics as the core part of observability and for running Kata containers at scale. Our demo is running in a Kubernetes cluster, which cluster will have only one node. All user workloads are running in Kata containers as pod. Kata monitor is used to collect metrics from Kata container D shim v2 processes. A dashboard of Kata Containers 2. Metrics in Kata Containers 2 contains all components of Kata containers, including Kata monitor and container D shim v2 process. And Kata agent that running inside the guest OS, and here is the hypervisor metrics. And last, the guest OS metrics. Kata Containers 2 is using Prometheus protocol to expose metrics. Prometheus is a graduate project from CNCF and widely used as a monitor solution. So any tools that are compatible with Prometheus can integrate with Kata containers. And the Grafana server is an open source visualization platform. Now let's begin the demo. We have already some pods running in the Kubernetes cluster, so we can see a number of time series in the graph chart. In the Prometheus dashboard. Here this is a matrix that represents the running shims count. Here we have 3 pods, so the number is 3. Let's try to delete or create some pods. The new pod named stress as running now. That we can, for example, we can see in this chart, we will have 1 pod here. The green one is stopped, and here is the new one as started. Then let's see an alert example. Prometheus has a has a alert function, and we can see all the alert rules and alert state using Prometheus server's web admin console. Here we have 2 alerts, and they are all in not active state. So all the alerts are in green color. We can go into the container by kubectl command. And we can use the stress command to simulate heavy CPU pressure. I'm also prepared a dashboard that shows the system load for the guest OS. Here we can we can see that this pod is start at this time, and the guest loss is increasing. It's now about 1. It's the alert value that we have set. You can see this as the alert rules. If the value is larger than 1, we will get an alert. Here, the alert will be triggered. Now the value is above 1. After a certain time, in this demo is about 30 seconds, the alert will be triggered. And now it's in red color. Also, an alert message will be sent to Slack. Here is the Slack as the alert message that we received just now. Now we will stop the stress command. Then the guest load should be decreased. we can see that the time series is going down. And after about 30 seconds, the alert will be in normal state. And we will also get a alert message that indicating the alert has been resolved. Thank you. Above is the demo. Thank you for your watching.
That was great. And Ben, we actually got a question in the chat, or a few questions now. So I was going to pass some of those to you and Shu. The first is there a continuous data stream from the shim to the Kata agent to get the metrics?
Actually, we extend the agent protocol and get the information from the agent.
Okay, and the second question is, what's the size of the VMs with Kata containers and what operating system are you using?
Actually, for Kata, there is no full gas OS. We just use the gas kernel and some basic configurations to launch the containers inside the gas VM, and it's only provide the gas kernel space part and a small agent to monitoring and like supervisor things to maintain the life cycle of containers, and no full gas OS there. Yeah. And for the size, it depends on the configuration, and if you use the CRI protocol in the pod spec, there will be the limitation information that we will use this resource limitation info to create the containers, to create the pod. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for that demo. It's a really great way to kick off today's discussions. And y'all mentioned a lot of the technologies that will be discussed later today. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Ashley to tell us what is in the schedule for today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, so today we will continue talking about OpenStack and containers together. We're going to have 3 different sessions, and there will be an Etherpad for each session. In the first one, I will turn it over to Spiros to talk about OpenStack and other containers projects that are not Kubernetes together. And then after that, we'll have John from Stack HPC talk about OpenStack projects that interface with Kubernetes. Also, we'll talk about Metal 3 and Kata containers. And then the last session of today, we'll be talking about SIG cloud provider and provider OpenStack. And then tomorrow, our final day, we will talk about telco network function as well as security and isolation. And then we'll do a final wrap up for a good portion of tomorrow. And the wrap up is really key to these OpenDev events. So make sure if you're available to stick around for that. And we'll let you know how to get plugged in afterwards. But for now, I will turn it over to Spiros for the first session.